Hey everybody, it's Brian, and you are watching the PhoneArena video review of the HTC 8XT. Now the 8XT, as you can clearly see, is running Windows Phone 8. This is the first Windows Phone 8 device that Sprint has chosen to carry. The platform launched back last fall, but up until now they have been absent from the market. This is the first device, but very shortly after we're going to be seeing one of the Samsung devices as well, so it'll quickly have some company. Now, the phone, like we said, is called the 8XT, and it looks very similar to the 8X that launched last fall, but there are some very key differences. Overall form factor is almost identical. It feels great in the hand. The display is fairly nice, but there are definitely some differences between that original phone that launched on Verizon and AT&T and this phone, which is exclusive to Sprint. First off, they both share 4.3-inch displays. However, the 8X had a 720p display, whereas the 8XT only has a WVGA display. So a little bit of a downgrade there. Now we will say, with as flat and bold and colorful as Windows Phone is, we don't really see much of a difference in the display on the overall UI. However, if we're going to look at some pictures and things like that, we will notice that the quality just isn't quite the same as we're used to with the 720p display. The next thing is going to be this bezel down at the bottom. On the 8X, this is an all-black bezel. The 8XT kind of gives itself away easily by having a colored bezel. Now we have a little problem with this colored bezel, and then we're going to flip the phone around and show you here that it doesn't match the rest of the back. The little strip down here matches just fine. However, the rest of the battery cover doesn't match. And it just kind of gives the phone a weird, almost unfinished look, like they didn't pay attention to the details. Now, we know HTC is excellent in their fit and finish, and in terms of the overall feel, the materials and all that, this phone feels great, but that's kind of a rare, dare we say, misstep for them to have this design choice. There's no difference in the material down here and up here, so it's not as if there was something going on. What the difference is with this break here is the back actually, and we have to give it a lot of force. There we go. Will pop up. Now, this is another difference. You're going to find your SIM card because this is an LTE device, and then there's also a micro SD card slot back here. So, expandable storage, it's only got 8 gigs of internal versus the 16 on the 8XT, but this is expandable up to another 64 gigabytes. But as you see, getting that back panel off is very difficult, and it took us a little bit to figure out exactly how to do it. We're a little bit embarrassed to say we actually had to look it up, which is not really that common for us. But nonetheless, it does come off. It is very, very sturdy, we'll say, so it's not something that's going to be popping off anytime soon. Like the 8X, the 8XT does have this beautiful soft touch finish. You can't see it, but we are definitely feeling it. It is just about perfect. It gives it just the right amount of grippiness. It gives it a great luxurious feel. And once again, HTC really comes through on the fit and finish. And then we're going to take a look at the camera. Most likely the same exact 8 megapixel BSI camera with an image sense chip that we saw on the 8X. Similar results, a little bit of a redesign. The flash is down on the bottom instead of the side. And you have this big bezel, which we're not particularly a big fan of, but results are fairly good. Nothing too astounding, but we can't really complain. The phone is not there for a secondary or a primary camera. It's more of a secondary thing. It's not Nokia's pure view camera, so we'll give them a little bit of a pass for the mediocre performance. Along the side, you're going to have the volume rocker and then also a physical camera key. This is something we love to see, and as with all Windows devices, real quick, you got the power button up top. If you press and hold it, even if the phone's locked, you're going to launch right into the camera. So not only do we like having that, but we like having that quick shortcut access to it. So in terms of overall feel and build quality, the phone is great. It feels fantastic in the hands. The build quality is excellent. Exactly what we come to expect from HTC. Just a couple curious design differences from the 8X, such as, of course, this mismatched back, and then also the sort of gaudy camera bezel. One last thing that we want to mention is you will notice there is no speakers back here. You do see the Beats Audio logo. Speakers have been moved to the front. You have one here and another one tucked away in the earpiece. That's because, like the HTC One, this 8XT features the HTC BoomSound, so a much better multimedia experience, however, a little bit dampened by the fact that the display isn't quite as good as we saw on the 8X. Just a quick look at the interface here. This is just standard Windows Phone 8. Nothing really too much to talk about. The phone is driven by a Snapdragon 400 1.4 megahertz dual-core processor, so not quite a flagship processor, but again, it's Windows Phone, so it doesn't require the 4 and 8 core quads that we see on a lot of the Android devices. We found the interface to be nice and snappy. Everything moves nice and quickly. We didn't really run into any lag or hang up, so no complaints. It could have been a little bit faster, but at the same time, this is not a high-end device. It is a mid-range phone, $99 on contract. So nothing really to fault there. It runs on 1 gigabyte of RAM. Like we said, the 8 gigs of internal storage, although that is expandable up to 64 more gigs with the external storage. So plenty of room for pretty much everybody, and we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that as a Windows Phone user, you have an oddly numbered 7 gigs of cloud drive storage included. So got some space in the cloud also. At the end of the day, what's really going to sell this phone is the operating system. It's an excellent design, but if you're not a Windows Phone fan, then there's really no reason to buy it. The camera performs as expected. It's not great, but it's not bad. The hardware specs are right in the mid-range, nothing special, but it runs the phone just fine. Like we said, there's some curious design choices. We're not sure that some guys are going to be crazy about this two-tone purplish blue. With the darker color, I think it would have been a little bit better, but this lighter accent down at the bottom just gives it a little bit of a look to it that's, you know, not the most manly look. That said, it feels great. We would definitely carry this phone for the hardware alone. We would like to see a higher resolution display, but at the same time, the operating system lends itself to be a lot better on those lower res displays. So that is one thing that we are going to ding the phone for, but we're not going to ding it too much. Windows Phone 8 is the big limiting factor here. If you like Windows, you're going to get it. There's nothing really to differentiate the phones in that front. It does have good performance, but it does not have the same app selection that you're going to find. It does not have the ecosystem that an Android or an iDevice would have. So if you're looking for a Windows Phone and you're on Sprint, right now this is your only option. We're going to quickly see Samsung Ativ. However, right now this is what you're stuck with. It's not the worst phone in the world to be stuck with. There are some compromises to be made, but overall we really like the fit and finish. We like the build quality, and performance was just fine. So if Windows Phone is for you, the HTC 8XT is definitely worth a look.